Virginia Reeves. I am a local author. I live here in Helena, Montana, and have lived many other places as well, though. Recently spent about 7 years in Austin, Texas, where I went to school for the third time. So I'm here to talk to you about writing, and that is what I do for my living. I am a teacher and I am a writer. So I have quite a bit of experience both going to school, applying to schools, and writing. So those are pretty much the things I'm here to talk to you about. I have one novel that came out in 2016 from Scribner called Work Like Any Other, and my second novel is due out from Scribner in May of 2019. So it's a little background. I also teach at the college level. I teach at Helena College here in Helena. So let's talk about scholarship essays and essays, application essays to colleges that you'll be applying to. The main thing that I want to stress above all else is that you need to tell a story. So don't think about this essay as an analytical essay or similar to maybe the literary analyses you've done in your English classes. You're telling a story to very real people who are reading that story on the other end. You don't know who those people are, you don't know their likes, their preferences, their dislikes, but you know that they're people. It's great, that's a plus. And people by nature, we are driven by stories. We're driven by narratives. We love to hear stories. And test this on yourself, right? If somebody says, "How was your day?" You answer in story. You curate your day down into an interesting story. And if you don't, maybe you should try that and your friends will be more receptive to hearing about your days. So you want to tell a story. Now, there's a couple things in that story that you should think about. Well, first is what story should you tell? And I give a lot of tips here and a lot of kind of brainstorming. I think the first thing you should do is you should sit down at your computer or with a piece of paper and just jot down as many ideas as possible about moments in your life when you have been pushed out of your comfort zone, when you have been angry. When we're angry, it tells us a lot about ourselves. When you have had to overcome something, when have you had to overcome adversity? When have you been, uncomfortable? And also think about a time when you maybe have felt that something was unfair or unjust. So all of those ideas, and maybe you haven't experienced each of those, but just make a list of as many ideas as you can that could fit some of those criteria. And that's a great place to start. And then when you're looking at that list, which one of those speaks to you the most? Which one do you most want to talk about? What are some of the stories you already tell? What are the stories from your life? That's a great place to start as well. So once you have that idea, think about what it is that a story does. Now, a story takes us on a journey. We want to hear stories because we want to go on a trip. We want to explore something else that we ourselves haven't necessarily explored, but that we can relate to. There's a couple great ways to keep your reader involved in that, and we think of this as kind of the ebb and flow of the story. You can also think of it as like tension and release. So your job as the storyteller is to give a little bit of information that makes your reader want to read more and find out. So think about this as a question and answer. I saw a great essay that started out with, I think somebody waking up from unconsciousness in the middle of a classroom. That was the very beginning. As a reader, I was like, I want to know what happened to get us right there. Or another essay that opened up underwater in a lake. Yes, I have a question. What are you doing underwater in the lake? Tell me what happened and what led you there. So you're taking us on a journey and you're giving us just a little piece at a time to that journey, and those pieces are intriguing and interesting and make us want to read more. Next, you're thinking about emotion. You want your readers to feel something. A lot of the time when we talk about emotion, I think we focus solely on maybe those really overwhelming negative emotions, sadness, anger. A lot of those prompts I gave you bring up those emotions, but there are a lot of other emotions to think about. Humor, laughter, joy, these are all, laughter isn't an emotion, but it is a byproduct of emotion, and humans love to do that as well. We love to laugh. So think of all of the different emotions that you can bring up humor and tragedy sometimes go hand in hand, and don't be afraid to include both of those emotions in your stories, because that's life, and we want to feel that. So we want to feel what you are emotionally connected to as well. So it's important that the story that you're telling, the emotions that you have connected, those come through in the writing as well. So think about emotion. You're thinking about your journey, that tension release of the details in your journey. You're thinking about emotion. And next, like all good stories, all great stories have really great characters. You are the character in this story. You need to make sure that your readers know you. At the end of this essay, they have a good sense of who you are as a person. You're asking the reader on the other side to give you money or accept you to their school, and probably both. Oftentimes you're asking for both of those things. So you want to be as clear about who you are as possible. So what is it about you that is unique? And you're going to get to that in details, as many details as you can. And especially in first drafts of your essays, throw all the details you can in there. You can always go back and scale them down and delete. But at the beginning, get in as many details as you can. Overwrite at the beginning and then go back and edit. It's a great way to do it. So you need to be very clear about who you are. You are the main character in this essay. Journey, emotion, character, you. And lastly, you bring all of that to a close. You land us, you ground us somewhere. So you've led us on this journey, and at the end of it, we need to know why. So there are great stories out there that don't close, that don't end well, where there's this wonderful, it's the joke that falls short, right? So you don't want that at all. You want to build up this beautiful story, this great narrative with amazing details and a compelling character and a wonderful emotion, and you want it to land somewhere where your reader goes, aha, the point is this. So think of that as you're writing. What is the main idea? You can think of it as the main idea. You can think of it as the lesson. You can think of it as the theme. So when I teach workshops on this, I say, okay, you're telling me the story of your grandmother's feral cat, this wild cat that your grandmother tamed. Why? That's a great story, but why are you telling it to me? And you might say, well, because it taught me that ferocity and meanness can be tamed through kindness. And that is something I've taken to heart, and I bring it forward into my life, and it's why I want to become a doctor. Maybe. So why are you telling us this story? This is also a great moment where you can relate your story to the prompt that you're writing to specifically. So I always encourage my students to have one great story that you can tweak as needed for different prompts. So let's take an example. I had a student who wrote a story about a really devastating loss of a friend to suicide. And that narrative it hits all of it, took us on this journey of friendship and loss. The character was vivid and strong. The emotions were rich and devastating and heartfelt. And at the end, she was able to say, that loss has prompted me to want to pursue psychology and to help others through that, so that families and friends don't suffer the same loss I did. And that is why I am pursuing this scholarship specific to psychology, or that's why I'm pursuing admission to your college and the psychology department. So think about your story and how you can then pivot it and relate it to something else. That lake story, that was a story of overcoming fear. She opens her eyes underwater. She had this kind of debilitating fear of deep, dark water, and there's actually a name for that fear. There are names for all of our phobias. I don't know what it is. But that was a story of overcoming fear and stepping out of her comfort zone and then recognizing the beauty that is underwater. And so that story can pivot in all kinds of directions too. The theme of that, the lesson is, I am ready to take chances. I am ready to explore new territory, and I want to do that at your institution. So think about that end as you close down, you finish off your story. where is it landing? And how can you relate it directly to the prompt? So you have this one great narrative and you're able to pivot it and make it apply to a variety of prompts. Don't feel like you need to rewrite or start a new essay for every scholarship or college that you apply to. Because if you have one really strong essay, you can really massage it and nuance it and make it work for most all prompts. Now, there are certainly some mistakes that I would like to caution you against. So one of those is telling the cliched story. So even you're wanting to, I'm encouraging you to have a main idea, clearly, a lesson at the end, but you need to make sure that you're not falling into a cliche. That's something that everybody might be writing about. So think about, as I've read several, I've read innumerable essays, and most people who are applying to college have always wanted to go to college. So if the theme of your essay is that you've always wanted to go to college, that's not unique. This is your chance to shine, to be unique. You want to stand out in a pile of hundreds or thousands of other essays. So you need to make sure that your story is unique and hasn't been told hundreds and thousands of times already. So watch out for cliches. And that goes for main ideas, and that also goes for details. So if you are describing something in using words that have been heard many times before, go back, use a thesaurus, find some new ones. So avoid cliches. Another one, make sure that you are writing you don't need to be formal, you don't need to be stiff, but you want to be professional. You don't know who your readers are, and it is not worth it to alienate readers by using vulgarity, for example. I personally think cursing has its place at certain times. One of those places is not in a scholarship or college application essay. So leave out any cursing, leave out any text speak, casual banter. This is a professional essay, so make sure that you come across as a professional. No cliches, no text speak or cursing, proofread. So I'll always think about a college professor of mine, Brent Northup at Carroll College. He taught writing for the media, and we had to have spelling tests every week in that class. It was a 300 level college course, and I was so angry about having to take spelling tests at this level in my career in college. And I remember I was very outspoken, and I remember complaining loudly in class about these spelling tests. And Brent said, okay, this is why I make you memorize how to spell things. Because when you are applying for a job and your cover letter has one misspelling, it goes to the bottom of the pile. You don't get the interview because you didn't take the time to spell check. So I still am not a great speller. I could memorize the spelling, I did fine on my tests, but that stuck with me. And that is true, for better, for worse. If your essay has spelling errors, typos, grammatical mistakes, punctuation errors, it goes to the bottom of the stack, because what that tells your readers is that you did not care enough to proofread, or to get someone else to proofread it for you. That's what it says to me as a reader. It doesn't mean that you're a poor writer, because everybody needs editors. So don't think of it as, everybody has errors in their writing. I, as a professional writer, have professional editors who edit my work. My last novel was rewritten 24 times. You have to revise. It's worth it for what you're going for. All right, you guys, that's my advice for writing a scholarship essay or an essay to college. I encourage you to get as many eyes on that essay as possible before you submit it. So also rely heavily on teachers, parents, advisors, trusted friends who can catch your grammatical errors. Make sure to have your piece read, get that proofreading done, and tell a great story. I think that sometimes we're afraid that we just have these ordinary lives and we don't have great stories. And I think that some of the best stories I've read are from the most ordinary moments. So don't think that because your story doesn't feel huge or grandiose, that it's not a really great story. So I wish you great luck. Onward.